This is absolutely insane. Artificial intelligence is about to change the world of economics forever, and I'm going to prove it. I'm sure you guys have all seen on social media lately videos and screenshots of people using the newly released AI from Elon Musk's company OpenAI, ChatGPT-3. This is an artificial intelligence fluent in every language, including like programming languages, and it is designed to be more conversational, and it is mind-blowing what it can come up with when you ask it a question. And so just to see what kind of nuance this thing has for a complex topic like economics, I decided to have a conversation with it about economics, and I would like to share that with you right now. It's actually mind-blowing. Okay, so I asked it, can you write an outline on the Austrian view of economics about how deflation creates wealth? So let's see what it got right, what it got wrong, and how impressive or not this thing is. So first of all, it states that the Austrian view of economics is a school of economic thought that emphasizes the importance of individual freedom. That's true. And the role of the market in allocating resources. That is true. According to the Austrian view, deflation, or a general decline in prices, can create wealth by encouraging individuals to save and invest their money. Now, that is an extremely succinct and precise explanation here of the question at hand. So it's really impressive, the outline that it goes through and kind of describes the mechanics. So it's impressive. I'm going to break down for you what's there. There's a couple of pieces missing as well. So here's a possible outline. This is all from the AI, by the way. Here's a possible outline of how deflation can create wealth according to the Austrian view of economics. So first, deflation encourages individuals to save and invest their money. So that part is true, because if you anticipate prices to continue going down into the future, then your incentive is to continue to just save your money, right? Because you're going to put it away. You're not going to spend it if you know, hey, if I wait a week, that'll be cheaper. I might wait a week. If I know in a year it'll be cheaper, I might wait a year. Now, it's not always going to do that. Otherwise, nobody would ever buy a TV. TVs drop in price every single 6 months or every single year, and people still buy them because eventually it just gets to the point where you're like, okay, I want a TV now. And if the TVs are cheaper in a year from now, I can just upgrade and get a better TV for the same price or maybe even cheaper. And so just because things are dropping in price doesn't mean consumption ends. It just means that the incentive is more aligned towards the consumer, that prices get cheaper over time. So it does incentivize saving a lot more than our current system does. The reason why is because they can expect to receive a higher purchasing power in the future, which means their money just goes farther. And again, that is true. Okay. As more individuals save and invest their money, that means more capital becomes available for businesses to invest in new projects and expand their operations. Now, this is a great insight because all investment comes from saving. You cannot invest something that has not previously been saved. Even if the money is printed into existence, that new money only has purchasing power as a percentage of the original stock of savings. And so you cannot make an investment in something unless you've already saved that amount of money. So the more savings there are, the more investment capital there is available. And if you are going to invest in something, that's going to be in order to produce a return on your money. And so that means more capital is available for projects that will produce more wealth in the future. All right. This increase in investment leads to economic growth and the creation of new jobs, which in turn leads to higher incomes and increased consumer spending. So this is kind of like the example of the two neighbors. I think Peter Schiff is probably the first one that I heard this example from, but many people have used this example. You got two neighbors. They both make the exact same amount of money, let's say $100,000. One of the neighbors spends all their money every single year, every dime. So they always upgrade their car. They always have the new phone, always have the new fashion clothes. Like they always spend their money. They look rich. The other neighbor makes the same amount of money, but doesn't spend any money, has the old car, doesn't renovate their house, saves everything, invests everything in their 401k. 20 years go by, this one looked richer the entire time, but actually he's broke and he has to continue to work the rest of his life. This one, after 20 years, he's put away enough where he can retire, and he's actually the rich one. He's got millions of dollars, the other one doesn't. And so by deferring consumption into the future, you increase your purchasing power, you invest, and ultimately increase your wealth. And so this is the insight in this third step, that the increase in investment leads to economic growth, creation of new jobs, higher incomes, increased consumer spending, because even with the better time preference where people are looking forward into the future and not spending as much, ultimately that creates so much more wealth that the aggregate amount of spending available is way higher, because you've had this massive buildup of wealth that couldn't have taken place if everybody was just spending the entire time everything that they made, like we do now. Now 4, as a result of this process, deflation can create wealth by promoting savings, investment, and economic growth. So that's just kind of like a summary there. But I want to point out one flaw in this that it doesn't account for, which is falling prices, because it talks about higher incomes and increased consumer spending. When you measure this from like a dollar standpoint, if you have a system that allows for deflation over time, it's because the money supply is fairly fixed. It doesn't really expand much over time. So when we look at, for example, a period of time from like 1870 through like 1910, there was deflation every single year, every single decade. Prices went down. Incomes went higher on a real basis, but incomes actually went lower on a nominal basis. So imagine every year, instead of getting a pay raise, you get a slight pay cut. But when you adjust for the deflation, people's incomes were actually going up. So your cost of living goes down by 5%, your income goes down by 3% or 4%. So you're still getting ahead. You don't care if you make 100,000 this year. You don't care if next year you only make 95,000 if it only costs you 90,000 to buy the same stuff you bought last year for 100,000. So you're still getting ahead because the prices drop more, the cost of living drops more than your incomes do. So this particular description doesn't take into account the fact that if you have a deflationary system, it's because you have a fixed money supply, which means that you dollar-wise, nominally, you cannot actually have aggregate higher incomes and aggregate increased consumer spending. What it actually means is prices fall so much that that's how people get wealthier, is that life just costs so much less. I mean, imagine how much better your life would be if it was $100 for a new iPhone, brand new iPhone, and if it was, $50 for your food that you need for the week. And if it was only $500 for your mortgage for a 3-bedroom house, and everything just got so much cheaper that you were able to afford more and more and more things. Yes, incomes would continue to drop, but the way that monetary policy works throughout a society is that it hits prices of goods and services before it hits wages. So when prices go up, the prices of your life go up first, and then your wages catch up. So you're always playing catch up and you're always further behind. When prices start to fall from a decrease or no change in the money supply, the cost of living drops first and then incomes adjust afterwards. And so you're able to get ahead faster and faster. Now, this is funny as well. It's important to note that the Austrian view of economics is not universally accepted, and other economists have different views on the effects of deflation and wealth creation. And that is an understatement of the century, because obviously very few people agree with Austrian economics, that point of view. Now, as one bonus here, something that was a little bit frightening, I asked the question, would an artificial intelligence be able to set prices more effectively than a free market, allowing individuals to choose how much to buy or sell things for? So basically, it's trying to get at the point that I've been preaching about on this channel for a long time, that eventually when they roll out a central bank digital currency, they're going to be using machine learning and AI to try and aggregate all the data that they're collecting from all the trillions of transactions that happen to try and make decisions to better allocate resources than the free market can by themselves. And they'll adjust prices, they'll adjust taxes and credits and subsidies all over the economy to try and direct resources one way or another in order to more efficiently allocate resources. And I've always said this is doomed from the start, because any artificial intelligence, no matter how advanced and no matter how much data, it absolutely cannot be a replacement for the aggregated decisions of all of the hundreds of millions of artificial intelligence's brains that are always making decisions based on their subjective needs and their subjective values and wants. And those needs and wants are constantly changing, and then how those influence prices as prices are bid up and down, because it's all on the margin, meaning I'm deciding whether I want to get an extra hamburger or get fries instead, right? So everything is always constantly viewing one thing in relation to everything else. And so it's impossible for just data of past transactions to be able to make decisions to better allocate resources than having hundreds of millions of distributed artificial intelligence's brains doing this on the fly by themselves. And so I wanted to see what an AI would say about this. First, it's difficult to say, this is the AI's answer. It's difficult to say whether an artificial intelligence would be able to set prices more effectively than a free market. There are a few reasons why it might be the case, but ultimately it would depend on the circumstances. So it says one potential advantage is that it could process a large amount of data and make calculations very quickly. So this could allow it to set prices in a more efficient and accurate way based on a wide range of factors that might be difficult for humans to consider. Now, this is true. An artificial intelligence could absolutely process more data than a human could, but it cannot process data that is not available, because the only data it can process is the data that it gets, which is by nature not available. The type of data that it would need is not available because value is subjective. It's people making decisions about what they want and need on a minute by minute basis relative to everything else. And those subjective needs and values are constantly changing. So the information that it would need, it can't have access to. Not only that, this is saying, hey, an AI would be better than a person at centrally planning with like a CBDC. But the real question is whether an AI in control of a CBDC is better than just a free market with hundreds of millions of brains making their own decisions. And there's no way. So what are the disadvantages that this AI sees for itself being able to set prices? One, it might not be able to take into account the subjective preferences and values of individuals. Oh, interesting. It's self-aware, which could play a significant role in determining prices in a free market. You think it could play a significant role? All right. Additionally, an AI might not be able to adapt to changing market conditions as effectively as a free market, where prices are constantly being negotiated and revised based on the interactions of many different buyers and sellers. And absolutely that's the case, because you have something that happens and changes in real time, and people are able to immediately start to take advantage of that and make other decisions based off of that change, because they're able to see the price respond accordingly. If you have prices set and imposed on a system, it has to wait for that data to make its way up to the decision-making factor, and then for that decision to be able to work its way into the system. And so just that time delay alone could cause a misallocation of resources that could have second and third order effects, like you push over here and it causes something to break over there. So in conclusion, artificial intelligence is extremely impressive, and just like any tool, it is going to be used to massively increase human productivity. All tools are just leverage, whether we look at fire or the steam engine or the transistor, the computer, the internet, or now artificial intelligence. These are all tools that allow humanity to have a greater output for the same amount of input. This is not something that is going to be a net negative for society. As always, these things are net positives for society, but that doesn't mean that tools can't be used in negative ways. And in fact, we see plenty of examples how especially governments like to take technology and use it for their own benefit against the citizens' interest, against the interests of the society and of individual freedom. And this is absolutely something that we could see here with how quickly tools like OpenAI's tools like ChatGPT are advancing and how good they are getting. We could absolutely see governments start to use these in things like central bank digital currencies. And ultimately, no matter how good they are, it will never be able to replace freedom. So I will never budge on that 1 inch, no matter what. And I hope you won't either. As always, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.